exploring life. What is life? And how do we go about studying it in biology? That is our focus for this topic. Now, in your assignment this week, I have you explore life through the 7 properties and processes that are used to define life. And you're going to want to pick an organism, any organism, it could be an animal, plant, fungus, what have you, and use that organism to describe these 7 properties and processes that we as biologists use to define life. I would really encourage you to use your skills of observation and take just 5 minutes with your chosen organism or organisms and just sit in nature and observe that organism. And you will be so surprised with what you see if you just stop and look and listen and use all of your senses to gather that information. So I really encourage you to do that this week. Now on to the idea of how we study life. We want to take a look at or think about the scientific method this week. So there are multiple steps in the scientific method, and the very first one, of course, is observation. Observing something, questioning something, using the scientific method with hypothesis-based science. And if you're just doing an observational study in discovery science, then you'll be using those observational skills to even a greater extent. And not necessarily asking questions with discovery science, but making keen observations that will later be used, more than likely, by hypothesis-based science to answer questions. So you're going to want to think about how we study life, what is life, and how we study life in this particular chapter. All right. Now, another key concept here is the idea of emergent properties, properties that emerge from a biological system. When all of the parts are working together in unison and functioning as they should, we have properties that emerge. And a really great example, a non-biological example, would be a bicycle, riding a bicycle. So the emergent properties of riding a bicycle, you are transported very quickly, or a lot more quickly than walking from one place to another. You feel the wind in your hair, and all of the parts of the bicycle must be functioning correctly in order to have that transportation emerge and that wonderful enjoyment of that bicycle ride. So the parts, of course, would be the wheels and the frame of the bike and the chain and the handlebars. And if you took any one piece of that system, that bicycle system away, let's say the handlebars, no transportation. That property of transportation, transporting you, would not exist. Okay. Now with the biological system, you can think about digestion, the digestive system. Digestion being the emergent property of the digestive system. You have your mouth and your esophagus, that food tube that goes down to your stomach, and then your intestines, of course. And if any one of those parts is missing, no digestion. You don't have absorption of the nutrients, you don't have digestion of the nutrients, and that system, that digestive system, would not function properly, and you would not have the properties that emerge from that system in existence. Another major topic here in this chapter would be the idea of a reductionist approach as opposed to a systems approach. Reductionism, you're reducing things down to a single part and looking at just that part of the system and studying just that part, trying to understand just that part. Whereas in systems biology, you're trying to take into consideration all parts of the system, understand how they interact, and come up with some conclusions about those interactions, which is very complex. And for most of science, the history of science, the reductionist approach is what has been utilized. Because for a very long time, very little was known about those individual parts, and still today, the reductionist approach is really the main approach to a lot of scientific research. We are moving or trying to move into that systems approach, utilizing bioinformatics, utilizing mathematical models to understand biological systems. So we are trying to move in that direction, but it is very complex. And there are some examples, some great examples in the PowerPoint and in the chapter that you're going to want to take a look at in regards to those two topics. Okay. So I will end with that for this chapter. Again, looking at life. What is it and how do we study it?